Good afternoon, everybody. This is our caller with the National Weather Service for June 2nd, 2020. There are a couple options for you. A 1-800 number, take you through a menu system, and weather.gov/Alaska. There's also a couple more options there. If you put on Fairbanks, Anchorage, or Juneau, it will take you to other web pages within the region and help you further refine your search. And lastly, we do put on a email that you can reach us. Have any questions about the show or the weather service in general, please don't hesitate to contact us. Looking at the hazardous weather, we do not have any advisories, watches, or warnings currently in effect, but we will take a look at the wildland fire information from June 1st, and you can see an extensive line of lightning activity from the southern Seward Peninsula all the way over to Fairbanks. Roughly 4,300 strikes was recorded in the state. The red dots indicate the active fires are now. I think there's 4 man fires currently in the state. Blue indicates that the fires that were put out. I will mention that the 24-hour precipitation ending this morning, we did have roughly a couple locations across the mainland was around a ½ inch in a couple places, but several areas in southwest and interior had about a 1/4 inch at several locations. Down in the Panhandle, I did look and see that there was a couple locations down by Ketchikan that had close to 2 inches, but otherwise ½ inch amounts were pretty prevalent across the Panhandle. Looking at the breakup map, open or mostly open conditions there for breakup analysis from the River Forecast Center. It's just dealing with the North Slope rivers. I think Kapark had a little bit of water on a road up there on the North Slope, but otherwise breakup is rapidly coming to a close here in Alaska. Looking at the satellite image, you can see a nice little low there in the western Gulf, spinning clouds and shortwave activity across coastal areas of the Panhandle through South Central and down through Alaska Peninsula. You can also see the imagery, thunderstorms starting to take off here this afternoon with those bright clouds there slowly to fire off this afternoon. We'll see that once again here. You can see that the thunderstorm activity is definitely starting to light up again, especially over the western interior down into the southwest and portions of the eastern interior. And then a little bit of clouds and fog, freezing fog across the North Slope, but otherwise cloudy conditions across the Gulf and into the Bering Sea. Looking at the surface map for today, 996 millibar low, that will be slowly drifting eastward, southeastward through the Gulf. And there's that shortwave activity spreading showers across the coastal areas from the Alaska Peninsula over to the Panhandle, and there's the thunderstorm activity spreading across much of the southern mainland, and then there's the freezing fog across the North Slope and portions of Norton Sound and into St. Lawrence Island. For tonight's weather, we're going to be looking at, again, that low slowly drifting east, 1,002 millibar low now. Weak high pressure across the northeast Gulf Coast, 10-15 millibars there, and again, thermal trough, thermal low across the interior and into the western interior, 1,004 millibars there. Fog showing up again along the Arctic coast and portions of Norton Sound and the YK Delta, and extensive cloudiness through Bering Sea. Wednesday's weather again, 1,007 millibar low drifting east in the Gulf, 1,019 millibar high over the Panhandle, weak but still there, and then thunderstorm activity shows up again, once again across the southern mainland for Wednesday, with thermal lows across much of the interior, and again fog across the North Slope. And for Thursday, again, weakening thunderstorm possibilities for Thursday across the interior and middle Yukon area. Otherwise, scattered snow showers across the mountains, and 1,010 millibar low now drifting again slowly eastward through the Gulf of Alaska. with a 1,030 millibar high just south of the Aleutians. For low temperatures, Wednesday morning looking at 20s across the North Slope, Point Hope 31, Adigan 38, AKwx Pass 43, 47 in Fort Yukon, 38 in Eagle, and then 47 in Fairbanks, with 47 in Galena, and then McGrath 47, Antioch 47, 45 in Bethel, and then King Salmon 45, Dillingham 43, Cold Bay 41, and 40s and upper 30s across the Aleutians and rest of the Alaska Peninsula, with Kodiak 45, Cordova 45, and Yakutat 43, and 40s across the Panhandle with 47 in Haines. High temperatures Wednesday, looking at 70s across much of the interior, maybe even some approaching 80s there in the middle Yukon Valley, maybe even into the Yukon Flats area, but otherwise 30s across the Arctic coast, 38 with Point Hope, 70 Fort Yukon, 67 in Eagle, and then Fairbanks up to 70 there, and then McGrath 65, 60s and 70s across much of the southwestern interior, 65 in Bethel, 63 in Dillingham, 63 in King Salmon, Cold Bay 54, and then 50s and middle 40s across the rest of the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians, with Kodiak 49, Cordova 49, Yakutat 52, Haines 54, and 50s across the Panhandle. For low temperatures Thursday morning, looking at 20s across the North Slope, Point Lay 34, Point Hope 29, Ukqiavik 27, Adigan 41, AKwx Pass 45, 47 in Fort Yukon, Bettles 47, Eagle 40, Galena 47, 49 in Fairbanks, 43 in Northway, and then 45 in McGrath, 45 in Antioch, and 41 in Bethel, and then 43 in King Salmon, 43 in Dillingham, 40s, mid 40s in upper 30s across the rest of the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians, 45 in Kodiak, 45 in Cordova, 40 in Yakutat, 45 in Haines, Juneau 43, and 40s across the rest of the Panhandle. For Thursday afternoon, looking at 30s again across the North Slope, Arctic coast there, Point Hope 38, AKwx Pass 61, Adigan 61, Fort Yukon 68, 65 in Eagle, 65 in Fairbanks, upper 60s through much of the interior, with McGrath 63, 61 in Antioch, Bethel 61, 63 in King Salmon, 61 in Dillingham, Cold Bay 54, and 50s and upper 40s across the rest of the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, 54 in Kodiak, 52 in Yakutat, 56 in Haines, 54 in Sitka, 58 in Ketchikan, and it looks like we might even get into close to 80s again for Thursday afternoon across the middle Yukon and Yukon Flats. Otherwise, still continued foggy and cool across the Arctic coast, with freezing fog possible there. Otherwise, still cloudy and scattered rain, bringing temperatures across the Panhandle into the 50s and Arctic coast. The North Slope, the North Gulf Coast in the 50s, and across much of the Aleutians. We will be looking at 30s across the northwest coast, and then the Seward Peninsula, 56 there in Nome.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the flying weather for Wednesday morning, Onshore flow across the west and the Arctic coast brings IFR conditions over portions of those areas, with IFR conditions down through areas of the Bering Sea and into the central Aleutians, otherwise around a low pressure system. In the Gulf, IFR conditions in portions of the Panhandle, mainly across the coastal mountains and down through the Northeast Gulf and over into Kodiak Island, otherwise areas of marginal conditions in the Alaska Range. For, again, Wednesday morning. For Wednesday afternoon, improving conditions across the North Slope with IFR conditions just off the coast there. Clouds and low ceilings. Move off the west coast for improving conditions there. Otherwise, Nunavak Island, St. Lawrence, St. Matthew will be in IFR conditions. Those IFR conditions could extend down into the central Aleutians. And again, around that low pressure system, IFR conditions in portions of the Gulf and marginal conditions across much of the Panhandle. Thursday afternoon, again, IFR conditions push onshore over the west coast and St. Lawrence, Nunavak Island, and north side of the Seward Peninsula. Otherwise, IFR conditions just off the Arctic coast, and IFR conditions in the central and western Aleutians, and marginal conditions across the Gulf and portions of the Panhandle and into southeast mainland. For Thursday afternoon, IFR conditions just skimming the Arctic coast there, marginal conditions down through YK Delta and into Norton Sound and Bristol Bay area, with IFR conditions in much of the Bering Sea and through the central and western Aleutians, and marginal conditions in the Gulf, in scattered areas in Prince William Sound, improving conditions and otherwise pretty good flying conditions across much of the mainland and into the Panhandle. Forecast conditions, VFR conditions for Anaktuvik and Atigan, and passes in the Alaska Range will be seeing marginal to improving VFR conditions. Lake Clark, Merrill, marginal to VFR, again they're rainy, as well as windy. Isabel, much the same. Mentasta, Tanita. Portage, we're going to be going down to marginal conditions there, and IFR conditions should be improving to marginal by end of the day. Looking at the freezing level for Wednesday morning, rather chaotic map again this morning with the surface freezing level cutting across the North Slope and into Canada. Otherwise elevated freezing levels across the northwest part of the mainland with up to 8,000 feet there. Otherwise lower freezing levels across the Panhandle and into the Gulf with 2,000 to 4,000 feet, 4,000 to 6,000 feet across the Alaska Peninsula and into the central Aleutians. Icing I had between 7,000 and 10,000 feet associated with clouds around that low pressure system, and that covers some of the Panhandle and into south central and southeast mainland, with considerable moderate in some of the areas there in the eastern Kenai, northern Kodiak Island, and coastal mountains, otherwise between 7,000 and 10,000 feet in portions of the Brooks Range. Jet stream for Wednesday, looking at that low pressure system in the Gulf, 35 knots in the northern Alaska Peninsula, and 35 knots in the central Alaska Range, 35 knots across the coast there of the Arctic, and 55 knots from the north cutting across the central Aleutians. For 9,000 foot winds on Wednesday again, there's that low pressure system in the Gulf, 30 to 40 knots around that system. Counterclockwise flow, 30 knots out of the north across the central Alaska Peninsula, otherwise 25 knots in the northerly fashion across central Aleutians. And then for 3,000 foot on Wednesday, 25 knots across the Arctic coast there from the east. And again, there's that low pressure system with 25 knots dominating portions of the Alaska Range and into some of the Alaska Peninsula and just off the shore there in the YK Delta area. Turbulence again Wednesday, we're going to be seeing below 5,000 feet in portions of the eastern Kenai Peninsula and into Kodiak Island, and I did analyze some considerable moderate possibilities there just below in the northern Alaska Peninsula.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particle paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swirling charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look at the sea ice analysis for today, the 2nd of June. You can see we have some openings there on the Beaufort Sea coast, Arctic coast there, northwest coast, some lower concentrations beginning to show up. Lower concentrations around St. Lawrence Island and into Norton Sound. We still have some anchor ice, or shorefast ice, I should say, in Kotzebue Sound, but otherwise continued degrading of the sea ice throughout much of the Chukchi Sea and Beaufort Sea. Wednesday's marine forecast for southeast inside waters, winds generally from the south at 15, seas as high as 3 feet. Outside waters, winds generally from the south at 10 knots, seas as high as 9 feet. Small craft advisories out through Wednesday for that area. And then for Thursday, inside waters, winds generally variable, 10 to 15 across the inside waters. Outside waters, winds generally from the west at 10 knots along the North Gulf coast. Coastal waters, northerly 10 to 15, seas as high as 7 feet. And then Wednesday for south central Gulf area, we're looking at winds generally from the east at 20 knots, seas as high as 8 feet. Prince William Sound, winds generally from the east at 15. Cook Inlet, winds generally from the north or northeast at 10. West of the Barren Islands, winds from the south at 15, seas as high as 5 feet. For Thursday, looking at winds generally from the north across the Gulf region at 15, seas as high as 6 feet. Prince William Sound, winds generally from the southwest at 10, seas as high as 2 feet. Cook Inlet, winds generally from the west or southwest at 15. In the northern Cook Inlet there, winds from the south at 15. For Kodiak Island and Alaska Peninsula around Kodiak Island, winds generally from the northeast at 15 to 20, seas as high as 8 feet. South side of the peninsula, winds generally from the northeast or northwest at 15, seas as high as 8 feet. And north side of the peninsula, winds from the northwest at 10 to 15, seas as high as 4 feet. And for Thursday, around Kodiak Island, winds generally from the northwest at 10 to 15, seas as high as 6 feet, just south of the Kodiak Island. On the south side of the peninsula, winds generally from the west at 15, seas as high as 5 feet. And then for the north side of the peninsula, winds generally from the west at 15, seas as high as 4 feet. And for the Aleutian Chain on Wednesday, winds generally from the west at 10 to 15, seas as high as 5 feet, just south of Unalaska and Nikolsky. And then for Thursday, continued winds from the west, 15 knots dominates on the just south of Adak and Atka, seas as high as 6 feet there. And for the west coast, winds generally from the northwest at 15 to 20, seas as high as 3 feet there around the Pribs. Otherwise, in Norton Sound, winds generally from the southwest or southeast, at 10 knots. And for Thursday, winds generally from the west at 15 to 20, seas as high as 5 feet just south of St. Matthew Island. And in Norton Sound, winds generally from the southwest at 10, seas as high as 2 feet. And for the Arctic coast on Wednesday, winds just off the Arctic coast from the east at 25, northwest coast, winds generally from the east at 25, and down through the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula coast, winds generally from the west at 15, seas as high as 4 feet. And for Thursday, Arctic coast, winds generally from the east 20 to 25, northwest coast, winds generally from the northeast at 5 to 10, and down through the Bering Strait, winds from the west at 15. And for tonight's weather, 1002 millibar low will be moving east through the Gulf, spreading showers through the coastal areas of the Gulf from the Panhandle up through South Central and into Kodiak Island. Thermal low in the interior, causing rain showers and thunderstorms in that area. And much the same for Wednesday, slowly progression of the low in the Gulf, 1007 millibar low, weak high over the Panhandle, 1019 millibar now, and continued thunderstorms in the afternoon.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.